All right, come on up. We're going to talk now about the student handbook. Okay.
Hello.
So we've looked at preview one. Now we're coming back to.
Yeah.
All right.
So, good evening, everyone. Tonight we're going to discuss the first read of the student handbook. As we said earlier, the first, or on February 10th, the handbook was made up of students, staff, parents, administrators, board members. We met about 6 separate dates. We discussed possible changes for the 2015-16 handbook. What I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight some of our major changes that took place. There were some questions about the handbook. Once I go through those major changes, then I'm going to go over some of the questions that took place.
Okay.
And then hopefully the next board meeting, the handbook for the 2015-16 school year will be approved. The first major change we discussed at the last board meeting on February 10th was the code of conduct. We went through it pretty in depth. The question that was brought up about students who do something besides caught, drinking or smoking, in terms, we talked about gross misconduct. So we had an additional meeting after that board meeting. We met, we talked a little bit about gross misconduct, the ideas behind it, students who might do something that maybe should be removed from a sport or an activity. They had some questions, but we kind of explained the process to it. They agreed to it, so we implemented that into the code of conduct for the 2015-16 school year.
I don't understand. I didn't catch it that way. So what did you agree on and what did you implement?
Sure. When we met, we said these were some of the ideas that the board members had. They wanted to
I understand, but specifically on the gross misconduct.
Sure.
What did you decide and what did you implement in here?
Sure. We decided that if you have a gross misconduct behavior,
Okay.
then you will fall into
The categories.
the category.
were-
First offense, second offense, and so on and so forth.
Thank you. I guess I still wasn't quite sure, but if it's gross misconduct unrelated to drugs or alcohol.
Correct.
Are we still gonna make them do the drug and alcohol counseling?
No,
Okay.
because it's not. It's different.
Okay, and I will speak for Ed, because he had to leave. He wanted to say he thought he did a good job, and he likes the fact there's discretion in here. That was his concern before.
This is also, as we said, the last board meeting, it's going to be in the handbook as well. When we do the residency, students sign off on the handbook page. Students who might be transfer-ins or late registration, maybe they're on vacation, when they come in, they finish all the paperwork, they will also sign off. So that way all students, whether or not they join the activity or sport, they will be part of the code of conduct. They will know it as well. Okay. The second was the updated final exemptions due to the fact that the PSE is no longer part of the student state testing. Students who meet or exceed the ACT area benchmarks in that specific subject area, like math, science, or English, have an opportunity to be exempt from final exams. Then the third was we just did a little bit more clarification with the language on academic dishonesty. First offense, where if a student will be removed, before I think it said may be removed, we made it as will be removed with their first offense, so that if you are in the NHS and you have academic dishonesty, you will be removed from that, as you would call it, a membership, the NHS. If you are a freshman or sophomore and you have a first offense, academic dishonesty, you cannot apply for the NHS until your senior year.
And that's their rule, according to your no.
Correct.
Okay.
And what's also what we do is we have I don't want to say a partnership, but we work with the NHS sponsor where they will email us every student who is applying, and then we double check to see if they have any academic referrals, because it's kind of difficult for a teacher to go back, because teachers get out the form and they mark off, accept, not accept. So we help them out, and sort of that's what I did today, is I went through every single one of the students and see did they have any suspensions, academic referrals, and then I pass on and say, they look good, a couple concerns, so on and so forth. Okay. And then there was a couple questions about the handbook. The attendance procedure where we have in the handbook where students must be called in by 10 a.m. Simply the purpose of this is a few things. One, since a lot of our students do walk to school, There are times where we'll look to see if a student is in school, because we look, it's called entry by date through Skyward, and we're able to identify students who are not present. And by 10 a.m., which is around third period, we take a look and we say, okay, well, we're missing so on and so forth, and we start to call home. And a lot of times, I shouldn't say a lot of times, there are times when parents believe that their child is at school and they might not be. So we end up calling them up saying, hey, Dave Sibley's not in class today. Did you call him in? And is he sick? I was just kind of worried about him. Oh, Dave's not in school today. Let me find out what's going on. And so this way we have more of a connection with the parents of what's going on. The other issue too is when we do a final exams, if you have an unverified absence or a cut, you aren't allowed to be exempt from a final. What was happening is that sometimes parents might be calling it a month later, saying my child was sick on September 10th. I just forgot to call you in. It got really difficult for our attendance secretary to go all the way back a month, or just to figure if parents remembered that their child was sick. So we wanted to put that in because it made it easier for us to keep track. It made it also easier for our attendance secretary to also keep track of that.
Can you stop there?
Yeah.
The prior draft, the current rule requires you to call within 24 hours.
Correct.
You used an example a month later. That would have violated the current rule, so why we did it, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But your last 2 points is it's easier for you, which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to tell you, I'll use myself.
Sure.
I more than once have been in a meeting, and my wife is a substitute teacher who doesn't have her phone on
Sure.
if she's working, and you know what? I forget.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm busy doing other things, and I'm going to tell you what, I think it's unfair to putting a burden on the parents because they have to remember to call or forget and whatever else they're doing. The 24 hours seem to address the fact that you still have to do it timely.
Yeah.
But if you can't do it by 10.
Yeah, it became to a point where, and I understand your frustration. I understand your frustration. The problem is it became too regular for a lot of parents who are doing this.
And also, we have Skyward send out the automatic dialer. If your child's marked you, unverified for that day, the automatic dialer goes out every night to remind parents to call that child in. So that's a warning sign also. It sends it out to like the cell phones and the home number. So that's an opportunity for parents to remember to give us a call in the morning.
We're not saying that they can't call within 24 hours. We're just using this as more of a, remember, get this in by 10 a.m., and it makes everybody's job, even the parents' jobs easier.
So if for a reason a parent doesn't call by 10, but they call sometime that day, they're still an excused absent? 'Cause
We
that's not
usually
the
make
way
an
I read
exception.
it.
We usually make an exception with that. But for the most part, most parents, I would say 90% of our parents call in by 10 a.m.
Okay.
Okay,
But, Tim, do you think 24 hours is enough, or do we need to
Yeah,
say
I mean,
48?
I agree with them.
Okay.
They shouldn't go back and you get a call. I mean, if a couple times in 12 years of doing it, you forget or whatever, you get a call, and then I immediately find out and call back. So I think the 24 hours is fair because they give you a warning. But I think if you really weren't going to treat it as an excuse because some parent doesn't call by 10, there's a lot of reasons that would
Absolutely,
happen.
and that's why if we call and it's 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, we get busy and we're like, oh, Mr. Walsh, you called, your son's not here or he's sick. Oh, I forgot to call, he's busy. Okay, that's fine, it's not a big deal, we'll fix it in the system.
Well, I suggest, if that's what you want to do, you say the expectation is you call by 10. If there's not a call by 24 hours, it will not be treated as an excused absent, if that's what you're really going to
I
do.
think that's a better way of saying it.
Yeah, sure.
What the
And I think
expectation
that's
is.
fair. You
Yeah.
know what? If you contacted the parents and they can't get back to you sometime in the 24 hours, that's not anybody's fault than the staff here. That's the parents' fault.
Sure.
okay.
I do have a question for administration. If you call the school after 4, you're put into a queue. So how does the parent do that if you have to call after 4?
You leave a voice
There's a
message.
voicemail
Yeah.
for attendance.
Usually you get the
And
voice
what we say
message
is
anyway.
the easiest thing, to be quite honest with you, we tell parents, email us. We have a good, Dave and I, we know most of our students now where the parents they'll send us an email,
Okay.
and or a lot of times the voice message goes through our email.
Okay.
And we'll hear them that night, and then the next day we get in and we take care of it.
Okay, good.
The other was a couple of years ago, we put in a policy where at home dances, we would have students wear wristbands, and if there was inappropriate dancing, we go through and we'd mark it 1, if we saw it again, you mark it 2. it was too difficult. It was too inconsistent. What some people feel is inappropriate and other people might not feel is inappropriate. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna remove that because we just can't do it. What we're going to do in the future is we're gonna start this next year, and we're not gonna put this in the handbook because we don't need to. It's just how we're gonna monitor our dances. Is if we feel that dance is being inappropriately, however they're dancing, we're gonna make an announcement saying, clean it up. If not, we're gonna turn the lights on. And then we're gonna see how that goes, and we will turn the lights on because it's very easy to do that. And I think if we did that once, then it would probably fix any situation.
Or put a big sign in front of the dance like Catholic schools do, keep the Holy Spirit between you.
What does it say?
Keep the Holy Spirit between you.
Leave room for Jesus.
Okay,
And
go
the
ahead.
parents were okay with that. I mean,
Yes, they were. They absolutely. There was 18 parents, and they were all like, "Oh, yeah, not a problem."
Okay,
And then the other one was the character counts paper. That was also put in previous administration. That was another procedure that was difficult to implement and stay consistent. When do you hand out a paper? Who monitors it? Who collects it? And like I said, our ultimate goal is not just to have students write paper, but if they're actually feeling bad for what they did, go to the staff member, tell them what you did wrong, and apologize. I think it's more powerful to come with an apology from a student, which is what we make them do. We suggest that they do this, than writing the paper itself.
okay.
Okay. I think that was it.
It's okay if I ask two other questions?
Absolutely.
One is, it says we have a reciprocal agreement with Brookfield and Riverside.
Mhm.
Do they only report residents of Brookfield and Riverside, or do they report all students that are RB if they were, like, say, arrested?
So that if a student from another, let's say North Riverside does something in
Riverside.
they come and they just give us the report, and they will read the report to us. So
Was there,
yes.
why don't we have a reciprocal agreement with the other towns that we serve, like North
We
Riverside?
do, it's just, I think we have more of an open one with Riverside and Brookfield because we're just right there. But yeah, if we need something from them, we call up North Riverside, or we call up Lions as well, Lions, yes, yeah.
Well,
Okay.
So one and two police districts, two communities, they automatically report it to us, we don't call them?
Two automatically come to us.
The other 3 or 4 that we serve.
There's no formal signed agreement with
So
the other
I'm
one.
just questioning
We've
whether that's.
approached some of them. Back when I first started here, I think one or two of them, the chiefs had an issue with it.
Okay.
So me and Kristen meet with all 6 chiefs to start off every school year, so we can ask them again about who's up to date.
So my only concern is it fair? Let's assume, and this might be wrong, that kids more likely are gonna get arrested in our own community for sake of the discussion. That if you live in Riverside, you're gonna get reported, or Brookfield, but if you live in LaGrange Park, North Riverside, Lyons, or Broadview, you're not gonna get reported. I'm a little concerned about whether that's fair to all the students.
I think that, the incident we were describing was if whoever threw the house party lived in one of the towns where there was no reciprocal.
Right.
It
Then
might
we
take us
call them.
longer on finding.
Okay.
So that's what Kristen and I can work on that with the chiefs again this summer.
Okay,
The other question I had is, and I'm glad I agree with Ed, we have discretion, but is it likely for of gross misconduct that was substance abuse related, would you likely do the community service type alternatives you have for the non-athlete? Is that likely what you're considering?
That's the plan.
Those are kind of
That
for
is
the
the plan.
reduction? Okay.
So I had some questions on the ACT. What is the purpose of doing that, number one?
More or less, it's like a motivation.
Okay, so the growth from Explorer to ACT doesn't occur in 1 year, right? I mean, that growth is from walking into school through to your senior year. So why did you add that portion into the exemption? And then the question I had proposed was a person came in with a science of 11 and scores 17 on it, gets exempt from a final, but a kid scores a 22 in science, he doesn't get exempt from the final. If he came in with an Explorer score of 20.
Yeah, so we had a discussion about this at the building level and felt that if a student came in with a score of an 11, statistically, usually has no chance of getting a 23. And so for that student, it's very difficult to motivate them to try. 'Cause that's the goal behind this. And so it also, a lot of the students that are in special education also come in and are not able to meet that ACT benchmark of science, for example, of 23. And so we wanted to still provide students who typically do not have an opportunity to get to a 23 to still show significant growth, and we set the growth benchmarks pretty high, but still show significant growth and be able to get exempt from taking final exams.
So is this it's a 4-year process to say you can, starting in your sophomore year, you gotta start, focusing on what you can do. So your senior year, you cannot take final? I mean,
Yeah,
is that the story that's told to these kids constantly? I mean, I don't, having high school kids, they worry about the next 5 minutes,
Right.
not the next 3 years.
I will say our juniors are already asking, since in our current handbook it says PSAE. They want to know, 1, whether or not this exemption policy will still be in play for next year, and 2, what it is. And so with the March 3rd test next week, they have been asking. And I would argue that even to get to the regardless of what you come in with as an Explore score, it's a 4-year process of working hard in your classes to get to that 23, regardless of whether you came into with a 17 and grew, 6 points, or whether you met the growth benchmark that was set.
Okay, so and these numbers, how do they match some of our performance goals that are put into administrators' contract? Are they
They're
in line with
pretty-
them, or are they lower?
They are in line with them.
All right, any other questions for the handbook? So you're gonna want us on the board meeting on the 10th to approve this?
Yep, to send it.
Okay, thank you very much, appreciate it, sorry for the wait.
Thank you.
I didn't ask John if he had a question, because I saw him in the corner, I did, so.